Welcome to the 10-Minute Life Lesson Podcast. I'm Jay Cleveland Payne. When this timer hits 9 minutes and 55 seconds in this recording, you'll have a fully developed life lesson that you can take with you and begin immediately implementing. The podcast falls under the umbrella of my greater personal development efforts, all under the Your Better You brand. For information on accountability coaching or to gain access to tools, tricks, or life hacks, visit yourbetteryou.info. Thank you for joining me on the journey today. Now, here is this week's life lesson. Adulting as a meme is hilarious. Adulting as a theme for a stand-up comedy skit is extremely funny. But adulting is a real thing. It may not be a skill that you actually develop as adulting, but adulting, being an adult, doing adult things, and having responsibilities and getting them done is a real issue, a real thing that a lot of us adults have issues with doing, especially at certain points of times. As I said, having a meme that being an adult and having to put on shoes and get dressed to go out to the store is sometimes an accomplishment you really can't do is funny. But in reality, if you need to go out in public, you kind of need to be dressed, hopefully to some level of sanity. We've all seen the pictures from the people of Walmart website and laughed at those people. But in reality, we tend to want to be those people more often than we will admit. Adulting has a semi-definition, something I define as the recognition of consequences of actions and inactions. And this is something that you obviously learn as a child, but it's something that becomes a real deal when you are actually responsible for yourself and others people's stuff. As a toddler, you believe you are the center of the universe. As a baby, you know that because you really kind of are. You pretty much are up to the whim of everyone else, but everyone else seems to want to help you out. They want to change your diaper. They want to feed you. They want to give you all the love and attention you seem to want, even though you're not very good at communicating. You just sort of cry and lie there most of the time. By the time you learn to walk, you're mobile. You can do things and touch things and actually perform activities and talk. You still believe you are that center of the universe, but you find out that the larger humans tend to focus on, yes, some of the cute things you do, but some of the not so cute things you do. Everything isn't wonderful anymore, and they're not always looking to serve you at your beckoning call. There are times when they're going to tell you to not talk, to not run around, not be a bother, not make a mess, and that becomes a hard lesson to learn. But after a while, you will learn it, but it's not a very happy one once you do. And trust me, as a toddler, you continue to believe that you are the most important thing in the world, which becomes really frustrating when other toddlers, other children come around, and you begin to understand that you have to share that main attention and share it with another person who's just as tiny as you are. Somewhere around the age of 18, we become legally adults. But that doesn't necessarily mean we've got adulting down right. We've got the understanding that we are not the center of the universe and we are in control of our own actions and all the consequences. So that's how adulting becomes a meme, because sooner or later you realize you're paying bills, you're going to work, you've got car notes, you've got insurance policies, you've got the responsibility of taking care of other people's stuff, not just holding on to your own stuff, and that things that you do have consequences that can really mess over other people and the quote-unquote stuff they have. That's where the adulting becomes a meme, but also where adulting becomes an actual thing. Consequences are consequences. That's the number one thing in adulting, or just in general, that the word consequences doesn't mean there are bad things happening. There are just something happens. You press a button, a light goes on. That's the consequence of the action. And so once you get a handle on the fact that there are consequences and they mean something, that's when the real act of adulting begins, or just basically being mature in itself. We like to call cool things, and adulting makes it sound cool, especially when we're memeing about it. But in reality, it's basically coming to some sense of maturity. And you may come to maturity much, much earlier than others. You may come to maturity early in your teen years, but at some point, you actually have to become truly responsible and autonomous for yourself. 18 when you're legally there, or maybe 21 when you get through a college thing, or whatever it is, whenever you find yourself emancipated and on the hook for whatever it is you do, that's when the time for adulting begins. So here are some things to focus on to help make sure your adulting life goes much, much smoother than any meme that you see online. Number one is to recognize the local rules and customs that you have to deal with. You don't necessarily have to be a part of each and every one of them, but the ones that are most important are kind of important to keep up with. If you live in the United States, we drive on the right side of the road. If you live in Great Britain, they drive on the left side of the road. If you were to reverse that wherever you are, drive on the left side of the road here in the States or on the right over the overseas, you would find yourself losing your driving privileges, and that driving would be a privilege. Those are the basic things that you must follow. A stop sign means stop because if you go on through, you could cause an accident. Most of these laws and rules are there not just because people are mean. It's because the regulation of safety for everyone. We can't trust that everyone has the right bit of common sense, and we can't always trust that you will actually be able to act on a dime if something happens. So you make a rule, a common law that people follow, common actions, common responsibilities that people have. That way, if everyone follows those commonalities, we should all be more or less in the same boat on the same range. Now, this does not go along to acting or being a certain sort of personality. If you want to be a crazy hippie, be a crazy hippie all you want to. Just make sure you're driving on the right side of the street and observing all the traffic signs. And then they can be mad at your lifestyle, but they can't necessarily be mad at your driving skills, assuming you have decent driving skills. The second thing is to actually get over yourself. Remember we talked about toddlers and babies believing they are the center of the universe. Babies, as we said, technically are because they can't do much for themselves, so everything is revolved around protecting the baby. Toddlers start to get a little bit of protection ability of themselves, but they still believe they should get everything because they're toddlers. Adults believe they should get everything because they're adults. All of us do. But there is a point in time where you have to just get over yourself and realize that it's not all about you. Even when you believe it should be all about you, it can't be all about you. There are 8 billion people on the planet trying to live a little partial of their lives. Some of them have an unfair advantage than you do. Some of them have a not even close to fair advantage that you do. But they have to live their own lives, and they're probably not doing anything to get in your way directly. So with that in mind, you should do whatever you can to not get in other people's ways directly and not be a hindrance and burden. And the third thing is, don't be a hindrance and a burden. You know the common laws and the common actions and common interactions you should have with people. You should have figured out by now that it's not all about you, and the actions that you do have consequences that ripple beyond you, things that sometimes you don't even see. So it's up to you to be responsible and not let those actions just get out of hand. Sometimes it's up to you to clean up other people's messes because, 1, good karma, and 2, it actually helps you get through things if that mess is gone. Even if you did not cause the mess, it's better to not have it in the way so that you can have a clear path to do whatever it is that you like to do or whatever it is someone else would like to do because you're doing something great for that quote-unquote karma again. Now, I've been cursed with having a personality where I was overly serious and overly responsible at a fairly young age because just, I guess, ambitions for whatever reasons. And so I took on a lot of responsibility and a lot of adulting-like things fairly early, especially when it was time to actually be an adult. But then there were plenty of times where it was like, this is dumb. I'm not doing this. I'm not being an adult today. And we all suffer those types of days all the time. There are plenty of days where doing the laundry is a chore that just ain't getting done, even though you know you need clean socks for tomorrow. And you'll just have to kind of work your way through those simple foibles and just life issues. But adulting in itself, adulting and being responsible on the overall scale, it's hard because life is hard, but it's easy to do if you just stick to it. If you assume that you want to be a great member of society or just a functional member of society, then you will do what you need to do to stick to the rules and the lifestyle of just being an adult. Being a jerk, that's a whole nother issue. Being an adult, that's something that will come fairly easy once you get over yourself, understand whatever the common laws are going on there, and just assume it's your job to contribute. Thank you so much for joining us for the podcast this week. We are still doing some tweaking and twerking and dropping and strapping and all sort of weird things. And hopefully you are enjoying a different audio experience, a different experience with the audio this week. We've upgraded some equipment, moved some things around, and are working on something that's a bit more stable and permanent. And we are enjoying it so far, and there's much more to come. So thank you so much for putting up what we had in our transition. The transition still continues, but we're looking to make sure that we get things going on the better, moving more towards the up than the down in the upcoming weeks. If you want to contribute to helping us with that transition, there are many easy ways. We have a brand new Patreon site. If you've heard of Patreon, it's a website that allows people to become monthly subscribers to what they're doing, their content. And so my Patreon page is at Patreon, spelled patreon.com/J Cleveland Payne. J, the letter J, Cleveland like the city, Payne. Also, there's a website called buymeacoffee.com/J Cleveland Payne. You can buy me a coffee, basically a quick donation that's roughly the cost of a cup of coffee there. Of course, this podcast and its sister podcast, Steps to Your Better You, which is even quicker, 90 seconds to a life lesson, are housed at the website yourbetteryou.info. And as we said in the open, that's a place where you can find information about coaching and other tools to help you work on your personal development. The website, once again, yourbetteryou.info. Email us about those issues at yourbetteryouinfo@gmail.com. You can find more information about what I have going on in larger detail at jclevelandpayne.net and email me directly at jclevelandpayne@gmail.com. And that's all we got for this week. We are still working on a lot of things in the background, so a lot of the programs and a lot of the products I'm putting out this week have been on the shorter end and the tighter end, which is good sometimes. So we're going to celebrate the fact that we've got brevity down, at least for this week, as we've got a lot of double work going on, and keep on going. Soon we'll have a mechanism so we can do a much better job of doing these programs, doing all the programs, checking them all out, and hopefully you will agree. What I do need you to do is make sure that if you stumbled upon us for the very first time, you subscribe to the podcast. Links are at the website for the episodes at yourbetteryou.info or wherever your pods are caught, which I like to say. You can find us pretty much anywhere out there. Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called this week. Stitcher, Spreaker, Blueberry, Podbean. We are all over the place. Look for us. We've been there for a while. This podcast is almost 9 years old, even though it had a nice hiatus in the middle. So we've got plenty of stuff out there for you to catch up on too. So subscribe to the podcast. If you're already subscribed, share with other people so we have more people in the conversation of personal development. And come back next week. We'll have something next week. I promise. Another great episode of the 10-Minute Life Lesson Podcast from yourbetteryou.info.